Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So, any questions you would like to ask from the previous lectures? This will be our last class of ancient history, although we have classes of medieval history also from tomorrow. But this will be our last class of ancient history. I personally think that this is a good thing that these two topics should be taught together rather than separately. So that is why this demarcation of ancient and medieval, I do not agree with that demarcation a lot. As a discipline, of course, as a discipline, ancient and medieval history are very different. But I'm talking about from the UPSC perspective. My point is only about UPSC examination. Anything you'd like to ask? हाँ जी. डिपेंड करता है कहाँ किस रीजन की हम बात कर रहे हैं. चालकोलिथिक द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग. एनीवेज आपका कंप्लीट करो क्वेश्चन, आप कंप्लीट करो. हाँ. हम्म. हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल. नहीं ऐसे में नहीं बोल सकते, कनेक्ट नहीं था. ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है और इसलिए मैंने पिछले क्लासेस आई टोल्ड यू. लेट मी फर्स्ट explain what he's asking. He's asking that when I say that Chalcolithic age is from 3000 BC to 500 BC, and at the same time I'm also mentioning that Indus Valley Civilization is from 3300 to about 1300 BC, and especially जो mature phase है that is from about 2600 BC to 1900 BC. And Indus Valley is Bronze Age civilization. Bronze clearly involves metallurgy, while copper is naturally occurring element. So bronze civilization clearly is superior to copper civilization. So when I'm saying 3000 to 500 BC, what do I mean by that? So my meaning is very simple. Even if I'm saying 3000 to 500, it means for different reasons. History writing में हमेशा एक problem क्या होता है? That history is all about sources. Again, we always have to remember that history is all about sources. I need to find sources to come to a conclusion. Those sources can be written sources, if books, very good inscriptions, very well, archaeology, even that is also quite good, although there will be limitations. So we require sources. So Indus Valley Civilization का जो mature phase है, that is from 2600 BC to 1900 BC, and at this point of time, forget copper, but even some advanced metallurgical techniques was known in the northwest frontier, जो हरियाणा पंजाब region जो है, गुजरात राजस्थान region, Pakistan region, this was very much well advanced. But at the same time, there were regions of India which can be called Chalcolithic age. जो Deccan region है, lower Deccan, especially जो plains of outside plains हैं, they can be called of Chalcolithic age. And at the same time, that also does not mean that there is no interaction with the rest of the region, because we have evidences that people of Indus Valley Civilization did procure some raw material from the Deccan region, even the mature phase, right? तो ये हम नहीं बोल सकते कि किसी भी type का contact नहीं है, because we find presence of many artifacts, many raw materials especially from Deccan regions, and we find them into main cities of Indus Valley Civilization. Any other question? हाँ हाँ कॉपर काफी टाइम तक कॉपर काफी प्रोमिनेंट था. आयरन ऑफ कोर्स was used much prevalently in later part of later Vedic age, and especially महाजनपद एज जो है आयरन, जिसको हम प्रॉपर आयरन एज सिविलाइजेशन बोलते हैं. Second phase of that. The question he's asking is that, can we say that discovery of iron led to proper settled way of life into villages, into cities? So second phase of that. The first phase happened with the help of copper itself. जो Indus Valley civilization है, it is urban civilization. Now urban civilization will not of course emerge without first rural settlements. जैसे we told you about in जब हम बात करते हैं prehistoric period की, we talked about Neolithic phase, and we talked about Mehergarh. जैसे मेहरगढ़ का मैंने एक example दिया था, that how Mehergarh is considered the first village of Indian subcontinent region, first evidence of a village settlement. That happened before Indus Valley civilization, and in the course of few hundred years, few of those villages, of course, we have to assume here that agricultural surplus occurred, and that agricultural surplus now actually allowed more and more economic activities, more and more settlement, and that led to emergence of cities. So that is the first phase. Discovery of iron further fueled the second phase of civilization, which can be called later Vedic Age or Mahajanpad Age jo hai. So that is the second phase. And even today it remains a mystery. We do not have very good answer to this question, that why there is a gap of almost 1,000 years. 1,000 years is not a small period. You have to remember that. That Indus Valley Civilization declined by 1900 BC, जो mature phase है. And the next cities emerged by 600, 500 BC. There is a huge gap. Hundreds of years of gap is there. Now, why is it that it took hundreds of years for next cities to emerge? That is again a question which we do not have very good answer. We have some theories. All of the theories will basically roam around lack of agricultural activity, but we do not have, frankly, very good explanation. There is a question about meaning of tantricism. I think it's very difficult to frankly define tantra ka jo practice hai, बड़ा मुश्किल है इसको define करना. First thing first, tantricism को लेके काफी सारा एक वो है misconception है. जैसे whenever you think of tantricism, you think of aghodis who live in the Shamshan Ghat, in basically morgues. In some cases, there are descriptions of them eating flesh also. That is also there. Weird sexual practices is associated with tantricism. So there is a lot of misconception around tantricism. Tantricism, how can I define it? It basically talks about that it does believe in higher power, without any doubt, without any manifestation per se. It does not have to have any physical manifestation, a higher power. But at the same time, it believes that every aspect of nature, because every creation occurred because of, if I assume, a creator, then every aspect of nature, that this notion of purity and pollution, or this notion of good or bad when we associate with things, that does not make any sense, because everything after all was created by God. So this aspect of that few things are better, other things are worse, ये सारी चीजें से तंत्र relate नहीं करता. That is why tantricism does not believe in any type of social distinctions, any type of lavish life, materialism. In all such things, tantricism rejects. And tantricism talks about living like an ascetic, but ascetic, not a typical ascetic who is doing meditation, but an ascetic for perhaps who lives in a morgue, and even dead bodies can be a conduit of spirituality. So it's a very difficult, frankly, it's a very difficult thing to define. And it did emerge into जो early Gupta and Gupta age है. Tantricism became a very popular practice. Any other question? Guptas का रोमन्स के साथ लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस, सबसे जो एक क्वेश्चन है, तो आप सबसे पहले तो मैं गुप्तास के लिए मैं यूज नहीं करूंगा. जो लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस ट्रेड है वो कुशानास के टाइम पे डिक्लाइन हो गया था. क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग इज दैट व्हाई लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस ट्रेड डिक्लाइंड. There may have been many factors. One of the most prominent factor was that silk was the most coveted item, and silk was exported from China. Silk was a high in demand, जैसे silk from China, spices from India, textile from India. These were some of the most popular items which were exported to other regions of the world, such as European kingdoms. So one of the most reason why long distance trade declined in ancient world is because that Europeans learnt the art of making silk from Chinese merchants. That may have played a very important role. That is Chinese art of making silk, no longer it required import from Chinese region. That can be just one reason, one very important reason. But there can be other reasons also. For example, developments into Persia and Central Asia region, many nomadic tribes. अभी तक क्या था कि as long as you had Persian Empire, Greek kingdoms, they actually were great patron of trade. They facilitated trade, including Indian kingdoms. But emergence of many nomadic tribes and them becoming very powerful. जैसे even Shakas, Kushanas of course prospered a lot, but even later tribes like Hunas, they may have created a lot of problem, and that is also because of that also may have played a very important role in decline of long distance trade. तो हम शिप बिल्डिंग तो चलो फिर भी मैरीटाइम ट्रेड के लिए हम बोल सकते हैं, बट उसके लिए फिर हमको लैंड बेस्ड ट्रेड पे तो फर्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए था. राइट. तो शिप बिल्डिंग कैपेसिटी अगर एक कारण हो भी, तब भी जो लैंड बेस्ड ट्रेड है दैट शुड नॉट हैव बीन अफेक्टेड. बट वी क्लियरली सी अ डिक्लाइन इन लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस ट्रेड बाय 4th-5th सेंचुरी एडी. दैट इज, वो क्लियरली विजिबल है कि बाय 4th-5th सेंचुरी एडी जो है लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस ट्रेड हैज डिक्लाइंड कंपेयर टू व्हाट वाज ड्यूरिंग 1st सेंचुरी बीसी और 1st सेंचुरी एडी. ओके, एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? हाँ जी. हाँ 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 हाँ. ठीक है, तो क्वेश्चन इनका ये है कि इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन के पॉलिटिकल सेटलमेंट, वी टॉक अबाउट द पॉलिटिकल सेटलमेंट ऑफ इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन, देन व्हाट टाइप ऑफ पॉलिटी इट वाज. देयर आर टू थ्योरीज. वन थ्योरी इज दैट मे बी इट वाज पार्ट ऑफ वन लार्जर एम्पायर and all of these cities were part of this larger empire. Other theory is that these cities may have cooperated, they have been part of confederacy, not a centralized empire, but nonetheless part of one giant settlement, but all these cities were also autonomous. They had lot of autonomy. Decentralization, that it was more decentralized. Why first theory? So second theory के बहुत सारे जो ये हैं, that when we talk about empires, we have to find perhaps empire का एक capital होगा, center of power होगा. That center of power require large fortification. This theory was initially supported when Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were discovered. People thought that maybe Harappa and Mohenjo-daro or Harappa, they are the two larger cities, capital cities, and other settlements are smaller settlements. So that supported this. But now then you have Rakhigadi, you have Dhaulavira, you have Kalibangan, you have all this. All of these are very large settlements, saying that in fact some of the largest settlements were discovered after Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, right? तो ये सारे जो, this became a reason that saying that perhaps there is one center of power, and generally which empires often have. जैसे when we talk about Mauryas, you have Patliputra, or you have few cities, or you have, when we talk about Guptas, again you have Patliputra or Ujjain, but you find many cities, and saying that one was the center of power is a very it's very difficult to conclude based on just archaeological evidences. Any other question? So we have discussed a lot of things. I will briefly revise every aspect we have discussed till now. We started our discussion with prehistoric period. We divided prehistoric period into 3 phases, right? We talked about it, especially जो some important Neolithic settlements हैं वो आपके काम के. Even in prehistoric period, some megalithic settlements are quite important. Again, remember, even though megalithic settlement I taught you later in later classes, but it belongs to the prehistoric period because we do not have written records. Megalithic settlement of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka region जो है. Then we talked about the proto-historic period. Especially we talked about in 3 phases of Indus Valley Civilization. My main focus was the mature phase, one of the first urban civilizations, not of India, but of the world. There are many theories how it originated, there are many theories how it declined, there are many theories about its society, polity, etc. All of them are theories. But the few theories, I say one of the theory was that it was an offshoot of Mesopotamian civilization. That has been rejected. So we consider Indus Valley Civilization to be an independent civilization which emerged because of agricultural surplus, and in the course of time, of course, it maintained trade relationship, other relationship with contemporary civilizations. We discussed various aspects of society, polity, economy, decline also, that why it may have declined. Right now, the most accepted theory is that it may have declined because of climate change, a serious, significant drought, which basically reduced agricultural productivity, and agriculture was not enough to feed such a large chunk of population. And because of that, gradually cities were deserted, and many people may have moved towards eastern side or southern side. Then we talked about Vedic Age. Vedic Age we divided into 2 parts. Early Vedic Age. Early Vedic Age we talked about from about 1500 to 1100 BC. सबसे जो इंटरेस्टिंग एक फीचर अगेन है जहां पे आर्कियोलॉजी इकलौता सोर्स है बट वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग पार्ट ऑफ हिस्ट्री है, वो है आपका ये जो 1900 टू 1500 वाला पीरियड है. इनफैक्ट जो 1900 टू 1300 वाला पीरियड है, बिकॉज यू डू नॉट हैव इन जनरल यहाँ पे रिटन रिकॉर्ड्स तो ऐसे भी हम वी हैवंट डिसाइफर्ड इट, but this is the period where Aryans by 1500 period Aryans have come and they have started settling. So we have from some archaeological settlements where we find evidences of both Vedic culture as well as late Harappan culture. So these sites are very interesting sites for historians to analyze. That does tell you some sort of interaction between different group of people. Later Vedic age, perhaps 1100 to 600 BC, and in the late part of later Vedic age, around 800, 700, 600 BC, you had again emergence of smaller towns and they became in fact larger towns. So the concept of Jan initially meant a tribe. We talked about that. Early Vedic age is completely tribal chiefdom. जो later Vedic age है, you have now settled way of life that people have started settling into, especially Ganga Yamuna Doab region, while early Vedic age was around Indus and its tributaries. जो later Vedic age है, that is around Ganga Yamuna Doab region, settled way of life. Now the term Jan, which basically meant tribe, but now tribe which is a dwelling unit which moves from one place to another place. But in the course of time that Jan became Janpad, that a proper settled kingdom we are talking about. There may have been many Janpads, but out of those Janpads, some Janpads became much larger and they are called Mahajanpad. Mahajanpad जो है, we also call it age of Buddha because Buddha lived around same period about 5th century, 6th, 5th century. So जो Mahajanpad period है, more or less, this can be period. Proper use of iron on a much larger scale, even though iron is found in Vedic age also, but large scale use of iron happened in Mahajanpad age. We talked about 16 kingdoms. We also discussed that how Magad emerged as the most powerful kingdom. Then we talked about some invasions, two set of invasions, Persian and Greek. These two set of invasions frankly did not have a very huge impact on the political scenario in India, but they did have other impact, for example, new trade routes, new ideas, new languages, scripts, all of those things. That did happen, but in terms of political change जो है बहुत negligible impact है. Then we talked about Mauryan age. जो Mauryan Empire है, so Chandragupta may have become ruler in 321 and the empire may have ended by 187 BC. तो ये हमने डिस्कस किया था. We talked about Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusar, Ashok. But after that of Ashok, the empire declined rapidly. ये भी हमने डिस्कस किया था. And then we also discussed more invasions by four group of people: Greeks, that may have happened across 2nd century BC to 2nd century AD. जो स्पेशली कुशानाज हैं, दे आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज ऑफ देयर इम्पैक्ट ऑन ट्रेड, देयर इम्पैक्ट ऑन इकोनॉमी, देयर इम्पैक्ट ऑन spread of Buddhism. Buddhism was not spread because of might of sword, it was spread across the world because of its ideas, right? Buddhism became, and in general Indian ideas, many aspects of Hinduism also spread into different part of the region, and that is because of people who along with goods they also spread the ideas of Indian ideas of Buddhism, Jainism or Hinduism to different part of the world. Then we talked about in Deccan region, contemporary to these invasions, we talked about in Deccan region, Satavahanas, who claimed themselves to be Brahman rulers, In fact, the greatest Satvahana ruler is called Gautamiputra Shatkarni, and he considered himself to be enemy of Kshatriyas. Not enemy, not just enemy. He considered himself to be a person who has challenged the pride of Kshatriyas. So they also lived about 2nd century BC to 2nd century AD, but in Deccan region. Few names you of course have to remember. Satkarni. Satkarni is different from Gautamiputra Shatkarni. Satkarni may have been one of the initial rulers, but Gautamiputra Shatkarni is the most important ruler here. Satvahanas are also known for their continuous conflict with Shakas, and especially one branch of Shakas who settled around Gujarat region. Shakas in northwest Punjab region, they were replaced by Parthians, by Kushans, but जो गुजरात में जो शाका settle हुए थे, they ruled for few centuries. But however, their power was challenged by Satvahanas. Then we talked about megalithic age of early historic period, but my major topic was Sangam age. We discussed the development of politics, society, economy, etc. from about 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD. And last two topics we have discussed is even though dynasty was settled by 3rd century AD and they may have ruled till 6th century AD. However, ये भी हमने डिस्कस किया था कि जो अंपायर जो हम बोलते हैं that will be from starting about 320 AD till about 540 550 AD. So about 200 years जो है the word empire can be used. Apart from that, you had decline of Guptas, and even in initial phases they ruled very smaller region. And one last rule which we talked about is Harshvardhan. He only ruled for about however, ये जो पूरा period है, this period is very important because of the transition which is happening in the society. One of the most important transition is emergence of feudalism, that rather than you have centralized empire which maintain a very large army, a prosperous empire, you have many smaller kingdoms. And these smaller kingdoms played a very important role in the overall development of politics, economy and society. And I'm going to continue that discussion. So in today's class, I'm going to talk about, again, I'm going to focus on what is happening meanwhile in southern region. तो अभी तक हमने decline of Gupta and emergence of Harshvardhan की बात करी थी in North India, but what is happening in South India? Now in South India, 3 kingdoms, however, the 3rd kingdom did not play that much of a role, but 2 kingdoms played significant role in the development. They have a long-lasting impact on the history of India. First kingdom is Pallava kingdom, and second kingdom, Pallava kingdom who ruled from Kanchipuram, and second kingdom which is called Chalukya kingdom, especially they are called Chalukyas of Badami. And they mainly ruled the region of Karnataka, but some part of Maharashtra also. And they also have long-lasting contribution to the history of India. Both of them were contemporary to each other. Because of that, both of them also fought many battles with each other. However, there is also an instance where, and there is a 3rd kingdom, of course, called Pandya kingdom, which ruled the southernmost part of the country. So 3 kingdoms, contemporary kingdoms, Pallavas, Chalukyas and Pandyas, contemporary to in fact Harshvardhan in North India. So let's talk about all these 3 kingdoms, their significance and their long lasting contribution, that what are some of the important things we have to remember them. Now who exactly are Pallavas, isko leke bhi काफी सारा debate है. There are at least 4 or 5 theories regarding the origin of Pallava. One of the theories is that they may have been Shakas who shifted in the region of South India because of Parthians and Kushans. Why we consider this to be a theory? because of the name Pallavas. जो Shakas हैं, sometimes they are also called Pahalwas. I talked about Greeks and Shakas. तो Shakas का एक अलग जो नाम है, बहुत बार we find the name Pahalwas for them. And Pahalwas and Pallavas are very similar. So because of that, there is a theory that they may have been Shakas who lived here. Another theory is that they may have been initially local rulers. For example, they may have been, जैसे we do know that Samudragupta defeated one of the Pallava ruler. So they may have ruled as early as 3rd century, 4th century AD as a very small chief. Because remember I told you in the last class that from about 4th to 7th century जो AD है, we do not have lot of information about southern India simply because we do not have lot of sources here. Kalbhara is जो हम discuss करते हैं. So Pallavas only became powerful by 6th, 7th century AD. They may have ruled in 4th century AD also, 5th century AD also. But they did become very powerful in 6th, 7th century AD, especially with the decline of Guptas and decline of other emergence of many regional kingdoms. There are many things about Pallava kingdom which you should know. Apart from few names, जैसे आपको आर्ट एंड कल्चर में आपने टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ा होगा. तो टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर में जब हम पढ़ते हैं 3 डिस्टिंक्ट स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर, द्रविड़, राइट, नगर एंड वेसरा स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर. तो जो नगर स्टाइल ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर है दैट डेवलप्ड इनटू नॉर्थ इंडिया, जो द्रविड़ स्टाइल है दैट डेवलप्ड इनटू साउथ इंडिया, एंड वेसरा स्टाइल मेनली डेवलप्ड इनटू डेक्कन रीजन, इन कर्नाटका रीजन जो है, अपर कर्नाटका, ओवरऑल डेक्कन रीजन. सो जो द्रविड़ आर्किटेक्चर है, द्रविड़ आर्किटेक्चर वाज स्टार्टेड ड्यूरिंग Pallava period. We find some of the greatest temples of southern India. They were constructed by Pallava Empire. That is one very important feature you have to remember. Another very important feature you have to remember is that in medieval India, in art and culture, it will be discussed in more detail about emergence of Bhakti movement. That जो Bhakti movement की हम बात करते हैं, so Bhakti movement का जो origin है, it actually goes back to Tamil Nadu. And Bhakti movement again originated into 6th century AD, and that again happened during Pallava's territory, in Pallava kingdom, with emergence of 2 group of saints, Alvars and Nayanars. Alvars worshipped Lord Vishnu, Nayanars worshipped Lord Shiva. So that also signifies that now you have new social forces into southern society. जैसे even though we do find presence of Brahmins, presence of Hinduism as early as Sangam age, but Vaishnavism and Shaivism emerged as a powerful social force. And their contribution is clearly seen because all of the kingdoms patronized Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu. Many temples are dedicated to them. So that is also another feature which you have to know, that Alvars and Nayanars, emergence of Bhakti movement that happened during Pallava period. जो Tamil literature का development है, that happened a lot during Pallava period, right? Another important thing which you have to remember is that their continuous conflict with Chalukyas, that they fought many battles with Chalukyas, and that may have led to decline of both of these kingdoms. जैसे there is a ruler called Mahendra Varman who fights with Pulkeshin, same Pulkeshin who has defeated by the way Harshvardhan, and Pulkeshin defeats Pallava ruler, and then he goes and destroys, not destroys exactly, but rules Kanchi for many years. But then his son, who is Narsimha Varman takes the revenge. He fights with Pulkeshin too, and he defeats Pulkeshin, and now he occupies Vatapi, which was the capital. Vatapi is what modern day Badami in Karnataka is. He goes and defeats Pulkeshin too, and he takes the title of Vatapi Konda, that one who has vanquished the power of Vatapi. But that was a very short-lived victory. Pallavas were again defeated by Chalukyas, and that also led to decline of Pallavas. And below Pallavas, there was a local chief who were Cholas. So I'm again going to talk about Cholas. Now, but we call them Imperial Cholas. Imperial Cholas के 2-3 ruler हैं, बहुत important name है, Rajya Raja और Rajendra Chola. You have to remember these names. But Cholas may have been the local chief under Pallavas. But because of decline of Pallava might, Cholas emerged very powerful, and Imperial Cholas in fact ruled a significant part of southern India. We will talk about them. That is one thing. And another thing is that even Chalukyas jo hain, their victory was also short-lived, because Chalukyas were now again defeated by another of their feudatories, and they are called Rashtrakutas. So this region was now occupied by another kingdom called Rashtrakuta kingdom. So many continuous developments are happening. Pallava kingdom first defeated by Chalukyas, later again Pallavas defeat Chalukyas, again get defeated. But even Chalukyas do not rule for very long, because Chalukyas are replaced by one of their local feudatories, one of their chiefs called Rashtrakutas. Right? So give this heading, Pallava kingdom. Pallava kingdom. You can give the timeline of 6th to 8th century. 6th to 8th century. Right on here. There are many theories regarding origin of Pallavas. There are many theories regarding origin of Pallavas. Such as they may have been Shakas, branch of Shakas, who migrated to South India. Or they may have been feudatories of Satvahans. Or group of indigenous people who became powerful with decline of central empires. The Pallava kingdom, एक लाइन आप नेक्स्ट बुलेट पॉइंट में लिख सकते हो. The Pallava kingdom may have started in 4th century AD. But by 7th century, they emerged as one of the powerful kingdoms. In fact, three kingdoms, Pallavas of Kanchi, Pandyas of Madurai, and Chalukyas of Badami, emerged as powerful kingdoms. Some of the early rulers were Shiv Skandvarman, Simhavarman, Write down next bullet point. Mahendravarman, Now there are two names you have to remember here. Mahendravarman is one of them. Mahendravarman, he may have ruled from about 600 to 630 AD. Mahendravarman is considered one of the great Pallava kings. One of the great Pallava kings. He was an efficient ruler. He was an efficient ruler and patron of art and architecture. Patron of art and architecture. He himself was a poet and composed Vichitrachit, He introduced rock cut temple architecture. Rock cut temple architecture. He was a patron of Shaivism. He was a patron of Shaivism. In a rivalry with, one last point you can mention, in a rivalry with Pulakeshin II, in a rivalry with Pulakeshin II, Pulakeshin II, he was killed in a battle. He was killed in a battle and was succeeded by his son Narasimhavarman. His son Narasimhavarman he may have ruled from about 630 to 668 AD. Write down next bullet point. Narasimhavarman is considered the greatest Pallava king. He is also called Mahamalla or Mamalla. This basically signifies a person with great strength. Mahamalla or Mamalla. He defeated Pulakeshin. II in 642 AD. He defeated Pulakeshin II in 642 AD and occupied Chalukyan capital Vatapi. Vatapi is what modern day Badami is. And took the title of Vatapi Konda. Took the title of Vatapi Konda. He founded this city, Mahabalipuram or Mamallapuram, named after him. He founded this city, Mahabalipuram, Mamallapuram, named after him. He also sent a naval expedition to Sri Lanka. Naval expedition to Sri Lanka. बाय द वे जो ममल्लपुरम है, आप यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट मैंने बताया था जाके एज अ होमवर्क करने को, करा, कोशिश करी, देख कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट साइट्स जो है. सो इफ यू गो एंड फाइंड पल्लवा जो रॉक कट टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर है, दैट इज ऑल्सो यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट, एंड some of the most important temples are found in Mamallapuram. This city was in news few years ago because अब तो करंट अफेयर्स का पार्ट नहीं है, 3 साल पहले न्यूज़ में था. अब तो इंडिया चाइना के रिलेशंस काफ़ी ख़राब हैं, इतने अच्छे नहीं है, काफ़ी ख़राब तो नहीं बोलूँगा बट इतने अच्छे नहीं है. बट चाइनीज़ प्रीमियर हैड कम टू इंडिया एंड आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैड इन्वाइटेड हिम टू द सिटी ऑफ Mamallapuram, a heritage city basically. Write down next paragraph. Later Pallavas ruler could not contain the large territory. They were defeated by Chalukyas. And the last ruler, this is irony, but last ruler was called Aparajit Varman, but he was defeated and killed by Cholas. The last ruler, Aparajit Varman, was killed in a battle with Cholas. Give the heading, significance of Pallavas rule. Significance of Pallavas rule. Significance of Pallavas rule. So first thing first, the capital Kanchi, write down, the capital Kanchipuram. The capital Kanchipuram became an important center of learning. Write down next point. Emergence of Bhakti movement in Tamil Nadu happened during this time. Two group of saints called Alvars and Nanners, two group of saints called Alvars and Nanners, who worshipped Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, who worshipped Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, emerged both Sanskrit and Tamil literature flourished. Both Sanskrit and Tamil literature flourished. Pallavas maintained trade relation. Pallavas maintained trade relation with kingdoms in Southeast Asia, and even today, we find the influence, or we find the Indian influence. We find the Indian influence in Java, Sumatra, Cambodia. We find the Indian influence in Java, Sumatra, Cambodia, in their architecture. So I can say architecture in particular, but overall culture in general. Even today, many names in Java, Sumatra region, they are Indian names, right? Cambodia, जो Angkor Wat temple है, again, it is one of the great sites of ancient world, and we clearly see that it has a lot of elements of Indian architectural heritage. So in architecture it is clearly visible, but overall in culture also it is very visible. Lot of Indian legends, for example, the stories of Ramayanas and Mahabharat, they are found in many Southeast and East Asian region. ये भी बड़ा interesting है, that the story of Ramayan, that Sita, Ravan, Hanuman, Ram, and stories of Mahabharat also, they have again different variations, but they are found in Thailand, they are found in Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Japan also. Even in Japan you will find some variants of these stories. So all of that may have occurred. Again, this process may have taken hundreds of years, but all these southern kingdoms played a very important role in spreading these ideas to different parts of the world. And one last point you can mention, Pallavas were great builder of temples. Pallavas were great builder of temples. Great builder of temples. In fact, the style of architecture evolved during this period. The early Dravid architecture is found from Pallava period. सबसे जो बढ़िया एग्जाम्पल है शोर टेम्पल एट महाबलीपुरम. देयर इज अ टेम्पल कॉल्ड There are many temples, but Shore temple at Mahabalipuram is the best example, or Mamallapuram, same place. आप एग्जाम्पल लिख सकते हो, Shore temple at Mahabalipuram. So, especially for art and culture, जो Pallava kingdom है, that is very very important. हिस्टोरिकल सिग्निफिकेंस, बट हमेशा मैं बोलूँगा आर्ट एंड कल्चर भी तभी आप अप्रिशिएट करोगे जब हिस्टोरिसिटी क्लियर हो, हिस्टोरिकल सिग्निफिकेंस क्लियर हो. सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टाइम. नेक्स्ट गिव दिस हेडिंग, चालुक्यास. देखो जब हम बात करते हैं पूरा कन्नड़ा रीजन की, इन कन्नड़ा रीजन देयर आर टू किंगडम्स which are very very important. They can be called the golden age of Kannada region. First is Chalukya kingdom and second is Vijayanagar kingdom. But Vijayanagar we will discuss in medieval India. Even though Vijayanagar, the greatest ruler of Vijayanagar kingdom is Sri Krishna Deva Raya, and he was a great patron of Telugu literature, not Kannada exactly. But nonetheless, before Sri Krishna Deva Raya, all the other three dynasties, they were great patron of Kannada literature. But nonetheless, the golden age of Kannada literature, or in general the golden age of Karnataka, it can be called Chalukyas and Vijayanagar kingdom. Who are Chalukyas? इसको लेके भी काफी सारा डिबेट है. That debate again origin पे एक proper answer आना वो बहुत मुश्किल है. The most accepted theory is that in the Karnataka region there was a dynasty called Kadam dynasty. Kadam dynasty did not become as such a great empire, but nonetheless they were great patron of the Kannada literature. Apart from Tamil, जो है Kannada language is the oldest language from southern India. Tamil is of course the oldest, but Kannada is the second oldest language. And it may have been spoken even during again before Christ era. But जो Kadam rulers हैं, they became some of the Kadam rulers became one of the greatest patron of Kannada literature. And Chalukyas may have been their feudatories, their local chiefs. But Kadams, they did not, their power ultimately declined. And Chalukyas became very powerful. They defeated the Kadam rulers and they set up their own independent kingdom. And in the course of time, because of lack of challenge from any other neighboring region, they emerged again from a small kingdom to an empire. So the Chalukya, when I use the word Chalukya, there can be as many as 3 or even 4 Chalukya rulers. सबसे important जो है, there are 2 Chalukyas which you have to know. First is Chalukyas of Badami. Chalukyas of Badami ruled from about 6th to 8th century, a period of about 200 years. And this is what I'm going to talk about in today's class. But then we also find that there was a branch of Chalukyas that when Rashtrakutas defeated them, then they shifted to eastern region. So they are called Eastern Chalukyas compared to Western Chalukyas. And then you have another branch who again came back to the western region after decline of Rashtrakutas. So as many as 3 Chalukya rulers are mentioned. But the name is so important that some rulers of Gujarat in early medieval India or even in medieval India, they also took the title of Chalukyas. They are also in some textbook, they are called Chalukya rulers, even though they are not exactly Chalukya rulers. हम discuss करेंगे. But Chalukyas of Lata, we use another dynasty which ruled in the smaller region of Gujarat called Chalukyas of Lata. So when I use the word Chalukya, it means different dynasties which ruled at different point of time, and the reasons were also not very same. But सबसे जो important Chalukya dynasty है, that of course is Chalukyas of Badami, which ruled mainly the region of Karnataka, but also included other part of the country such as significant part of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, etc. and parts of Tamil Nadu also. The Chalukya rulers, and they are known for again some of the greatest things. First, Kannada literature is very prominent of it. They also were patron of Sanskrit literature. So along with Sanskrit and Kannada literature also flourished. Great empire builders, Pulkeshin too especially is a very important name. एक जो वर्ल्ड का लार्जेस्ट रॉक का टेम्पल है कौन सा है? कैलाशनाथ टेम्पल, पता होना चाहिए, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट है विच यू शुड नो. जो कैलाशनाथ टेम्पल एट एलोरा है, दैट इज कंसिडर्ड द लार्जेस्ट रॉक का टेम्पल. वन इंटायर टेम्पल मेड फ्रॉम जस्ट वन सिंगल रॉक. So that was made by Chalukya's rulers. So their contribution to architecture is again very important. Especially जो वेसर architecture है. वेसर architecture has elements from both Nagar and Dravid style. जो Deccan region है, this region always has been a very important region to connect the northern region and southern region. Right? So propagation of ideas from southern India to north and northern India to south, the Deccan region है, that has always played a very important role. So that is why जो Vesara architecture है, it has elements from both Nagar architecture which evolved into North India as well as Dravid architecture, and it has some of its own unique elements that is also there. And the earliest architectural heritage of Vesara style again goes back to Chalukyas. Of course later rulers played more important role जब हम medieval India की हम बात करेंगे. जैसे especially हम बात करेंगे द्वार समुद्र के रूलर से Hoysalas. Hoysalas played a very important role in further evolution of Vesara architecture. But Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, they are quite prominent in this unique style of architecture. So you can write down few things here. There are distinct branches of Chalukya's dynasties. There are distinct branches of Chalukya's dynasty. However, they were related. They were related. First, Chalukyas of Badami. Chalukyas of Badami. Chalukyas of Badami. In ancient period, it was called Vatapi. So the capital was Vatapi. They ruled from, एक line लिख लेना, they ruled from 6th to 8th century. 6th to 8th century. Next, Western Chalukyas. Western Chalukyas. Write down here. They were descendants of Badami Chalukyas. They were descendants of Badami Chalukyas. Badami Chalukyas, who emerged powerful in 10th century. And ruled till 12th century. From Kalyani. Kalyani is again a city in Karnataka. Modern name of Kalyani will be Baswa Kalyan. From Kalyani. Write down next paragraph. The early Chalukyan rulers were Jayasimha, Pulakeshin I, Kritivarman, Mangalesh, write down a next bullet point. The greatest Chalukya ruler was Pulakeshin II. अब ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना, Pulakeshin II का टाइम पीरियड यू शुड नो. सो फ्रॉम 609 to 642 AD. to 642 AD. Give this heading Pulakeshin II. Write down few things. His birth name was Iraya. He was son of Kritivarman. He was son of Kritivarman. He defeated his uncle Mangalesh. He defeated his uncle Mangalesh in a war of succession. In a war of succession. Write down next paragraph. Information about him is recovered from a whole inscription. This is again a very important inscription. A whole inscription written by his court poet Ravi Kriti. His court poet Ravi Kriti in Sanskrit language, in Kannada script. Sanskrit language in Kannada script. He defeated Harshvardhan, write down. He defeated Harshvardhan at the banks of Narmada. At the banks of Narmada. And also defeated Mahendravarman. Mahendravarman, Pallava king. He maintained diplomatic relations. With King of Persia. He maintained diplomatic relations with King of Persia, Khusru II. Khusru II. He was defeated and killed by Narsimhavarman I. He was defeated and killed by Narsimhavarman I. His death, write down next bullet point. His death led to decline of Chalukyas of Badami. The last ruler of Badami Chalukya was Kritivarman II. Who was defeated by Rashtrakuta king Dantidurg. Rashtrakuta king Dantidurg. Give the heading significance of Chalukya's rule. Significance of Chalukya's rule. Along with Sanskrit, write down, along with Sanskrit, local languages flourished local languages flourished, such as Kannada and Telugu, such as Kannada and Telugu. Chalukya kings were Hindus, write down. Chalukya kings were Hindus, but were tolerant of Buddhism and Jainism. Were tolerant of Buddhism and Jainism. They patronized architecture, write down. They patronized architecture, which led to emergence of Vesara style of architecture. Vesara style of architecture. Vesara style of architecture, which has elements from both Nagar and Dravid style. Which has elements from both Nagar and Dravid style. जैसे by the way जो Aihole inscription है, Aihole जो region है, that is called cradle of Indian architecture. You have so many different type of temples of Nagar style, Dravid style, Vesara style, all of those temples you find at one location. So again a very important name, and I will just one correction here. जो Kailashnath temple है, that was constructed by Rashtrakuta rulers, not by Chalukya rulers. So that is a very important correction. But nonetheless, Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas, both of them contributed a lot to this style of architecture called Vesara style of architecture. So Chalukyas did emerge powerful again, but in 10th century. After 8th century, mid of 8th century, they were defeated by their own local chief called Danti Durg, who set up a new dynasty called Rashtrakuta dynasty. Rashtrakuta dynasty, very soon it became an empire. It was no longer a smaller kingdom, it actually became an empire which ruled entire Deccan as well as part of central and north India. So this is the zenith of Rashtrakuta dynasty. They ruled from this place called Manyakhet. So they are called Rashtrakutas of Manyakhet. The dynasty was set up by Danti Durg, who became the founder, and he also expanded the territory significantly because Pallavas already were on the verge of decline. Chalukyas already have declined. Cholas at this point of time had not become very powerful, even though Cholas were present, but they were not very powerful. So it was very easy for them to do the early consolidation, and now they started their expansion in the northern region. And they in fact came as here in Kannauj. Now Kannauj has a very strategic location. Now remember Kannauj, last time we talked about Kannauj, it was capital of Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan shifted his capital from Thanesar to Kannauj. It has a strategic location because you can rule significant part of India from this city. It also becomes part of the Ganga Yamuna Doab region. So a lot of agricultural settlement is there. There are many plains. So if there is any type of attack, then you can easily defend also. Just say India is vulnerable from outside attack from the northwest frontier. So in that sense, Kannauj is protected from this outside invasion, that there will be absorption of shock in this region first, and meanwhile the kings will have a lot of time to prepare for the battle. So because of the strategic location of Kannauj, there are two other kingdoms which are contemporary of Rashtrakuta. One kingdom is called Pala kingdom, who mainly ruled from Bengal, but they ruled this region, and another kingdom which is called Pratihara kingdom, who ruled from Gujarat, but they basically ruled this region. And these three kingdoms fought over Kannauj, and they fought many battles across 150 years, and this battle is called tripartite struggle. So while this is the map of Rashtrakuta dynasty, you have map of Pratihara, जो गुर्जर प्रतिहारा डायनेस्टी हम बोलते हैं इनको, they even though they ruled from Gujarat. This is the map of Pala dynasty, who ruled from Bengal, And these three kingdoms together fought series of battles across 150 to 200 years, which is called tripartite struggle or simply Kannauj triangle, because overall the battle was for Kannauj. All these three kingdoms wanted Kannauj to be part of their kingdom. So we find many battles. Rashtrakutas are fighting with Pratiharas, Pratiharas are fighting with Palas. In this battle, finally Pratiharas emerged victorious. After a conclusion of this battle was that about early 10th century, late 9th and early 10th century, Pratiharas emerged victorious. But this victory was also short-lived because a continuous battle that overall declined, even though Pratiharas at one point of time, their kingdom was as large as kingdom of Harshvardhan. Remember, we talked about kingdom of Harshvardhan. So this was the kingdom of Harshvardhan and this was the kingdom of Pratihara. So it was as large as Harshvardhan himself. However, again emergence of feudalism. Under Pratiharas, Pratiharas were one of the clans of Rajputs. We will talk about Rajput kingdoms that will be one of the first topics I am going to discuss in medieval India. But Pratiharas were one of the Rajput clans. And there were many local rulers under him, many feudal rulers, emergence of proper feudalism, many local rulers. With decline of Pratiharas, all of these local rulers claimed their independence now. And that led to emergence of many more clans and many smaller regional kingdoms, Rajput regional kingdoms emerged, especially in the region of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, which we will talk about in medieval India classes. But many of these Rajput kingdoms who existed during medieval India 10th, 11th, 12th century, all of them were at one point of time local feudatories of Gurjar Pratiharas. So even though the significance of this battle is that Pratiharas emerged victorious, but that victory was short-lived. So with the help of tripartite struggle, let's talk about these three kingdoms, some important names and some important developments which happened during this region. Let's start with the very first in Deccan region itself, because I'm talking about Chalukyas. So let's talk about Rashtrakutas. Give this heading, Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakutas. So by the way, जो Rashtrakutas हैं, they clearly are, it is very clear that they are feudatories of Chalukyas of Badami. They are local rulers, local chiefs, but as Badami Chalukyas, their power declined. Under Danti Durg, they declared their independence and they now became an independent kingdom. And Danti Durg is also responsible for the further expansion of the empire. Write down few things about Rashtrakuta Empire. Rashtrakutas were feudatories of Chalukyas, The dynasty was set up by Danti Durg. In mid of 8th century. Who further expanded his territory. In Deccan and Central India. He was succeeded by Krishna I. Who patronized the construction of Kailasnath temple at Ellora. Kailash Nath temple at Ellora. By the way, this is Ellora in general is part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. आप एक लाइन और ऐड कर सकते हो. This temple is the largest single rock cut architecture in the world. This temple is the largest single rock cut architecture in the world. Some other important kings were Govind 1, 2, 3, Dhruv, the greatest king of this dynasty. So there are two names you have to remember. One is Dantidurg, who is the founder of the dynasty, and another is a king called Amoghvarsh. The greatest king of the dynasty was Amoghvarsh I. Amoghvarsh may have ruled from about 814 to 878 AD. He set up a capital at Manyakhet. The modern name is Malkhed in Karnataka. He set up a capital at Manyakhet. His kingdom became prosperous because of agriculture and trade. For example, Broach became a premium port during his reign. He was a great patron of education and literature. He was inspired from Jainism. And because of peace and prosperity, he is often called Ashoka of South. एक लास्ट पॉइंट इसमें ऐड कर लेना. An Arab merchant Suleiman called him one of the four greatest kings of the world. Other three being Caliph of Baghdad, King of Constantinople, King of Constantinople, and King of China. Constantinople is what modern day Istanbul is. King of Constantinople and King of China. Constantinople also has a very interesting history. The Roman Empire of ancient world हम पढ़ते हैं, that was divided into two parts, Western Roman Empire and Eastern Roman Empire. जो Eastern Roman Empire का जो capital था, that was Constantinople. But Constantinople was finally won over by Turks, and that led to establishment of Ottoman Empire, जो आपने मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में थोड़ा बहुत पक्के से पढ़ा होगा. ऑटोमन खलीफा मूवमेंट, खिलाफत मूवमेंट जो है आपने पढ़ा होगा. सो ऑटोमन एम्पायर रूल्ड फ्रॉम अबाउट 12th-13th century till 20th century, even though the empire had become weakened significantly by 17th century. But for 400 to 500 years, it was one of the most powerful and one of the most prosperous regions of the world. And that was actually because that Constantinople was already a very prosperous city. And later when Ottomans ruled over it, they renamed it as Istanbul. And even today Istanbul is one of the great cities of the world. एक लाइन ऐड कर लेना लास्ट में. The Rashtrakuta dynasty declined by 10th century. The Rashtrakuta dynasty declined by 10th century. Give this heading, significance. Significance. Write down bullet points. They became great patron of Sanskrit and Kannada literature. They became great patron of Sanskrit and Kannada literature. For example, one of the greatest Kannada poet, Pampa, lived during this time. Next, they were great patron of architecture. For example, rock-cut architecture of Ellora and Elephanta. They maintained trade relations with Arab king. They maintained trade relationship with Arab kings. And एक last point add कर लेना. Rashtrakutas, Palas of Bengal, and Pratiharas of Gujarat fought series of battles over more than 150 years. To occupy Kannauj. This is famously called This is famously called tripartite struggle or Kannauj triangle. Tripartite struggle or Kannauj triangle. By the way, Kannauj was called Kanyakuj at this point of time. So any question till now in whatever we have discussed? I think just important names, their significance, long lasting contribution in literature and architecture, some important names ये clear होना चाहिए. So any question till now? अभी तो हमने डिस्कस किया थोड़ी देर पहले. There are many reasons why Kannauj is so significant, and Kannauj became very so significant. First reason is of course because of its strategic location. A very important city in Ganga Yamuna Doab region, known for its agricultural prosperity. Because of strategic location, that you can rule different part of India from Kannauj. Also, there is a historical legacy that Harshvardhan, for example, was the king just few decades or perhaps few centuries ago, and his capital was Kannauj, so it was already a very prosperous city also. So there is a legacy part also. So there are many reasons together which led to this, it became a matter of prestige also. So वो उसका जो reason है वो legacy वाला reason है, that ruler of Kannauj is the ruler of India as such. इस तरीके से आप ये समझ लो. So Patliputra का जो significance in ancient India. Why Guptas chose Patliputra as its capital? Guptas were not from Patliputra. They initially may have ruled region of Uttar Pradesh, but they chose Patliputra as their capital. Again, there is a historical legacy that Mauryas का जो center of power है वो Patliputra है. So legacy also plays a very important role. But it was not only about legacy. It was also about its strategic location, about the fact that it belongs to Ganga Doab region. In terms of agriculture, it is a very prosperous region. ये सारे कारण है that it became so significant. Any other question? Let's take a break here. After that, we will talk about other two kingdoms, Gurjar Pratiharas and Palas of Bengal. And if time permits, our last topic, we can finish it. Otherwise, we can start this in the medieval India class, is Imperial Cholas, because from the time of medieval India, I often start with Muhammad Ghazni. But Muhammad Ghazni and Rajendra Chola, they both are contemporary to each other. So we'll talk about, if time permits, we can start in today's class itself. Otherwise, in the next class. Let's talk about Pala Empire. Who exactly are Palas? So the last time we talked about the region of Bengal, that was a king called Shashank, who was contemporary of Harshvardhan. Discuss kiya tha humne that how there is a king called Shashank, king of Gauda region, who in fact betrays the ruler of Thanesar, and Harshvardhan finally aims to defeat him, although he could not defeat Shashank, but after his death Bengal was easily annexed. But then when Harshvardhan died, his empire also got disintegrated, and then there was a period of anarchy in the region of Bengal. There are many local chiefs. All of these local chiefs are fighting with each other with no consolidation by any people. People are just fed up with all this conflict which is going on. So there is a very famous inscription which belongs to the very first Pala ruler. His name was Gopal. They are called Pala simply because every king, their surname is Pal. Dharmpal, Gopal. So the very first ruler Gopal in his inscription mentions that there was Matsya Nyaya in the Bengal, in the Gauda region. Matsya Nyaya basically means where larger fish eat smaller fishes. Might is right वाली बात कि जो भी powerful है, बाकी कमजोर लोगों के पास कोई right ही नहीं है. In some places it is mentioned that Gopal was a local chief who was asked by people to become the ruler. How true that is, it is very difficult to conclude, but we can assume that maybe many local chiefs came together and they decided that one of the respected persons should become the king. That is perhaps the explanation compared to saying that people came together and asked a person to become the ruler. So a period of anarchy which happened in 7th, 8th century. However, Gopal founded the Pal dynasty. And this period in early medieval and medieval India of Bengal is called Golden Period of Bengal because of, again, not only the prosperity of kingdom, but also because of the patronage which was given to Bengali literature. Some of the greatest work of Bengali literature was developed during this period of time. Palas are known for many things. There are few things you have to remember about them. The first thing you have to remember about them is that they are considered the last great patron of Buddhism into India. Many of the Pala rulers, they were patron of Buddhism. A very good example is Nalanda University. That Nalanda University का जो last phase of construction है, that was done by Pala rulers. In fact, they had found a report that the level of intellectual activity in Nalanda has declined. And because of this, they also constructed another university called Vikramshila University in Bhagalpur, very near to Nalanda basically. Both of them were in Bihar. So a Vikramshila University was set up by Pala ruler. First thing. Second thing about Pala rulers which you have to know is that they introduced miniature painting into India. We often think miniature painting simply means I can divide painting tradition into two parts. Wall painting, which is called mural or fresco. पढ़ा होगा mural painting हम जिसको बोलते हैं. So mural painting बहुत पुराना painting tradition है इंडिया में. बहुत सारे folk painting as well as large scale painting they were murals. But जो miniature paintings हैं, small painting जो अभी हम घरों में लगाते हैं, small painting. Miniature painting often people think that it started during Sultanate or Mughal period. But it definitely prospered a lot during Mughal period. But the starting phase, this is an indigenous origin, that they introduced miniature painting into India. That is the second thing you have to know about them. Third thing which you have to know about them is that because of access to some of the premium ports, they maintained trade relationship not with just Java Sumatra region, but also to the Chinese kingdom. So Pala rulers had a trade relationship with Chinese kingdom also. Flourishing Bengali literature, that is also very important. There is almost two phases where Pala Empire declined. One decline happened in 9th century, again revived, then 10th century, again revived. But the final decline that happened when Islamic invasion to India had started. And final set of Pala rulers, even though they were defeated by Rajendra Chola. So Rajendra Chola of Chola kingdom, he went throughout the eastern coast and he defeated one of the Pala kingdom, which by the way already was on the verge of decline. And Pala finally completely came to an end and they were replaced by another dynasty called Sen dynasty, which we will talk about in medieval India classes. So two dynasties apart from Shashank, which is a ruler of Gauda kingdom, two other dynasty which you have to know. First is Pala dynasty and second is Sen dynasty. Sen dynasty, I'm only going to briefly talk about them when we will talk about Bakhtiyar Khilji and his destruction of Nalanda University. But Pala kingdom, that is very important. And at one point of time, they did occupy Kannauj, which by the way was called Kanyakubj, which is written here. They did occupy Kannauj, but this victory was short-lived because they were defeated by Pratiharas. Again, Kannauj triangle hi hamesha hoga. Rashtrakutas also had occupied Kannauj for some time. And Pratiharas also had occupied, Palas also had occupied. Final victory was for Pratiharas. So give this heading, Pala Empire. From 8th to 12th century. 8th to 12th century. Right on. The region of Bengal was annexed by Harshvardhan, after death of Gauda king Shashank. When Harsh died, his empire disintegrated. And a period of anarchy occurred in the Bengal region. Many local chiefs fought with each other. many local chiefs fought with each other, to establish their supremacy, This anarchy came to an end. This anarchy came to an end. With establishment of Pala dynasty. By Gopal around 750 AD. Around 750 AD. So the Harsh died in 647 AD and Pala dynasty was set up in 750 AD. So there is 100 year of chaos, 100 year of anarchy, and people were just fed up with this anarchy. आप लिख सकते हो, as per a inscription of Gopal, people elected him to prevent Matsya Nyay. मत्स्य न्याय का सिंपल मतलब होता है लार्जर फिश ईटिंग स्मॉलर फिश. Write down. Dharmapal founded Vikramshila University. Dharmapal founded Vikramshila University. Vikramshila University in Bhagalpur, Bihar. Bhagalpur, Bihar. Write down next point. Devpal is considered one of the great kings. Devpal is considered one of the great kings. Who was a great patron of Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism. He maintained diplomatic relations with King of Java, Balputra Dev. Balputra Dev belonged to a dynasty called Sailendra dynasty. The last powerful king was Rampal, who saved the kingdom from disintegration. However, during his son's reign, the empire significantly weakened The empire significantly weakened, and by 12th century, Palas were replaced by Sen dynasty. Palas were replaced by Sen dynasty. वैसे एक बहुत फेमस बुक है, which is written, this book is called Ramcharit, not Ramcharitmanas. Book called Ramcharit. This book is dedicated to two persons simultaneously, Rampal as well as Lord Ram. Such type of work, this is, किसी ने हिंदी ग्रामर पढ़ा है थोड़ा डिटेल में? हिंदी ग्रामर पढ़ा है anyone? अलंकार पढ़ा है? The concept of alankar basically, that in Hindi, in fact, the concept of alankar is present in all grammars across all languages, where we try to beautify sentences. Alankar का simple मतलब होता है where we try to beautify sentences by using linguistic skills, right? There are many types of alankar in Hindi grammar. A very famous alankar is called Shlesh Alankar. तो Shlesh Alankar में क्या होता है? That one thing can mean more than one thing. एक statement और एक word, but उसके बहुत सारे meaning हो सकते हैं. Compared to that, there is another alankar called Vakrokti, which is very similar to Shlesh, but in Vakrokti, what happens that I am saying something else and you are understanding something else. That is called Vakrokti. So Vakrokti will always have a conversation where there is a person who is narrating something, but जो listener है वो बिल्कुल ही कुछ अलग ही सुन रहा है, उसको बिल्कुल अलग तरीके पे लेके जा रहा है. जो श्लेष है, that is deliberate. That poet has written in a way that deliberately it can mean two things or more than two things. जैसे I can give you a very famous example. One of the dohas written by Rahim. I'm going to talk about Rahim जब हम मुगल्स के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, अकबर के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. There is a very famous doha of Rahim called Rahiman पानी राखिए, बिन पानी सब सून, पानी गया न उबरे, मोती मानुस चून. So where Rahim is saying that we should keep pani. Pani has a lot of meanings here. That pani, बिना आपको मोती नहीं मिलेगा. You cannot find pearl without ocean water. पानी बिना जो है, चूना जो है, limestone है, you cannot actually paint your wall without water. But pani has also meaning for human being. That pani here means prestige. That moti manus chun, manus. So for human being also, pani is very important. Pani simply means that prestige, that a human being should maintain his or her prestige. So same word, pani, but it has three different meanings for three different things. So this concept is called Shlesh. So there is a very famous book called Ramcharit. The way it is written, that it tells the story of Rampal also and Lord Rama also. Shlesh Alankar. तो आप लिख सकते हो. A book written by Sandhyakar Nandin. A book written by Sandhyakar Nandin. Ramcharit is written in Shlesh Alankar, in Shlesh Alankar, one statement can have more than one meaning. In Shlesh Alankar, one statement can have more than one meaning. Ramcharit tells the story of Lord Ram, and Pala King Rampal. Give the heading significance of Pala dynasty. Significance of Pala dynasty. Write down here. The Pala period is known as Golden Era in history of Bengal. The Pala period is known as Golden Era in history of Bengal. Pala rulers became great patron of Sanskrit and Bengali literature. Pala rulers became great patron of Sanskrit and Bengali literature. Write down the next bullet point. They are considered as the last patron of Buddhism, in India. Last patron of Buddhism in India. They built many monasteries and temples and also contributed to expansion of Nalanda University, and construction of Vikramshila University. They maintained trade relations with Java, Sumatra, as well as China. They maintained trade relationship with Java, Sumatra, as well as China. Their contribution to painting, write down, their contribution to painting, it's still witnessed in the region of Bihar, Bengal, Nepal, Myanmar, the tradition of miniature painting started during this period. The tradition of miniature painting started during this period. Any question in this topic? देखो ऐसे जो टॉपिक्स हैं यूपीएससी का पिछले 2-3 साल से आप क्वेश्चन देखना जो अर्ली मिडिवल पीरियड है दे आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम दिस पीरियड. ये उतना इंपॉर्टेंट था नहीं एग्जाम पर्सपेक्टिव से. आप 2020 के पहले के क्वेश्चंस आप उठा के देखो. From 2005, take 15-year questions till 2020. You will find that 90% of the questions are from 4 themes: Indus Valley Civilization, Sangam Age, Mauryas, Guptas. 90% of the question. But now UPSC is picking questions from these themes also. जो early medieval history है. Smaller kingdoms, their contribution, their long-lasting contribution to India. Some important names, they are asking question from this period also. So even a basic level awareness is going to be, and by the way, questions are not in lot of depth, but they are very highly factual. I will show you a few questions in medieval India that how questions have become very, very factual. Even though the level of depth is not very high, they are not asking you to just knowing the name of kings, they are asking question on that, just knowing the name of king, knowing their time period. And time period ऐसा भी नहीं कि exact year, which century, what are other things which are happening, इस type से चीजें they expect you to remember. So a basic level of awareness is going to be very useful to solve questions in prelims examination. And you can always use these names, or you can always quote these names if you are writing answer in mains examination also. Right? वो मेंस में भी बड़ा ज़रूरी होगा कि जितना ज़्यादा आप आर्ट एंड कल्चर या हिस्ट्री में, हिस्ट्री वैसे सिलेबस में तो है नहीं, एंशियंट मिडिवल हिस्ट्री, बट देयर हैव बीन क्वेश्चंस जिनको हम ट्रेडिशनली आर्ट एंड कल्चर का क्वेश्चन हम बोल नहीं सकते, दे आर क्वेश्चंस ऑफ एंशियंट एंड मिडिवल हिस्ट्री. तो यहाँ पे आपको ये फैक्चुअल इन्फॉर्मेशन थ्रो करना पड़ेगा. यू हैव टू थ्रो दीज नेम्स विच बाय द वे आर नॉट studied in much detail, but even if there is a relevant question, you can talk about it. Let's say, for example, if there is a question about painting in India, you can talk about the contribution made by Pala kingdom, because everybody is going to write about Mughal painting, everybody is going to write about folk painting, other paintings, but Pala painting जो है people will miss that. तो इस तरीके से कुछ कुछ आप ऐसे फैक्चुअल इंफॉर्मेशन भी आप थ्रो कर सकते हो आंसर लिखते हुए. एंड द लास्ट इंपॉर्टेंट किंगडम of this tripartite struggle is Pratihara kingdom. Pratiharas के बारे में भी काफी सारा थ्योरी है. Who exactly are Pratiharas? First, the name Pratihara in itself is very interesting. Pratihar literally means door keeper, द्वारपाल basically. So Pratihar का जो literal translation होगा that will be द्वारपाल. And Pratihar claimed their descent from Lakshman, the epic hero from Ramayana. Lakshman, younger brother of Ram. Because Lakshman is the doorkeeper when Ram and Sita, he goes with Ram and Sita to Vanvas, he spends 14 years and he is like their protector, their doorkeeper. So जो Pratihara rulers हैं, they claimed their ancestry or they claimed their lineage from Lakshman. There are historians have lot of theories about origin of Pratiharas, but the most accepted theories, जैसे एक जो theory ये है, that they have a foreign origin, that with settlement, especially after Shakas, Kushans, Hunas, that they came from outside, and in the course of time they of course mingled with local population and they accepted Vedic religion, they accepted Hinduism, and to further gain prominence in the society, they patronized Brahmins, and Brahmins gave them higher status, they made them Kshatriyas. That is also a theory. But another theory is that they have local origin, and in the course of time, with the decline of Guptas especially, and after Harshvardhan, you have no central authority. In the course of time, a group of warrior-like people, they became very powerful, and even though they may not have been very high origins in the initial age, but they did become patron of Buddhism, they did patronize a lot of Brahmins, and because of that, they got higher status, they attained the status of Kshatriyas. And they became one of the most prominent Rajput clans. जैसे जब हम Rajputs के बारे में पढ़ते हैं, there are many clans of Rajputs mentioned into historical significance. As many as 36 clans are mentioned from history, ancient history, as well as early medieval history. Most of these clans, they claim their lineage from either family of sun, which is called Suryavanshi, or family of moon, which is called Chandravanshi. So Suryavanshi Rajput or Chandravanshi Rajput. However, there are 4 clans who claimed their lineage from family of fire. Agni Kul हम उनको जिनको बोलते हैं. So जो Pratiharas हैं, they claimed their descent from Agni Kul. That they are one of the most powerful Agni Kul. Or by the way, all 4 of them are very important. Pratiharas, Chauhans, Parmars, one more I'm forgetting. So 4 clans, and all 4 actually played a significant role in the history of early medieval and medieval India. So Pratiharas are one of the Agni Kul Rajputs, and they claim their descent from Lakshman, hence the name Pratihar in itself signifies that they are doorkeeper. Very soon they expanded their territory in entire of North India, and some of the greatest names, for example, there is one ruler which you have to remember here is Mihir Bhoj, one of the greatest ruler of Pratihara dynasty. He is not the same Bhoj there is another Bhoj by the way. There are 2 kings who goes by the name Bhoj. One king is Parmar king of Malwa, and his name is Raja Bhoj. Just in the last class I told you about the story of Singhasan Batisi, that how there is a throne with 32 heads, and Bhoj is trying to sit on the throne, and every head comes to life and narrates the story of the ancient king Vikramaditya. And the head asks Bhoj that, are you worthy to sit on the same throne where Vikramaditya sat one point of time? So that story of Singhasan Batisi, that is actually dedicated to Raja Bhoj of Parmar dynasty. But even before Raja Bhoj, there is another Bhoj. His name is Mihir Bhoj, and Mihir Bhoj is considered often the greatest king of Pratihara dynasty. And many of the later rulers of Rajput kingdoms, including Parmars, by the way, including Chalukyas of Gujarat, so many rulers of later kingdom, they actually were feudatories of Pratiharas, but with their decline, they became very powerful. Other dynasties became very powerful. And the last Pratihara ruler, they were killed by Muhammad Ghazni. So Muhammad Ghazni का जो invasion है, that led to decline of many kingdoms, including Pratihara kingdom. But Pratihara kingdom already had declined because of internal conflict among Rajput kings, and whatever was left, that was wiped out by Muhammad Ghazni. So give this heading: Pratihara dynasty. Pratihara dynasty, 8th to 11th century. 8th to 11th century. So by the way, one more thing about Pratihara which is very, very significant is that they successfully thwarted the invasion from Arab region. They maintained trade relationship with Arab region, but with emergence of Islam in Arab region, I'm going to talk about in medieval India, I'm going to talk about 4 group of people who played a very important role in spread of Islam. The very first is Arabs. Arabs where Islam actually originated. What modern day Saudi Arabia, Kuwait जो region होगा. But it was further expanded by Persians, and later most of the expansion actually happened by Turks, which are different from Arabs. So the Arab invasion actually started as early as 9th, 10th century, and many of those invasions were thwarted by Pratihara kings. But the Turkish invasion, of course, was very successful, and that led to establishment of Delhi Sultanate. We will talk about that in medieval India. So give this heading: Pratiharas, 8th to 11th century. The term Pratihar means doorkeeper. The term Pratihar means doorkeeper. Doorkeeper. Pratihara kings considered Lakshman as their hero. Lakshman, younger brother of Lord Ram. Lakshman, younger brother of Lord Ram, as their hero. Right on. Nagbhat 1, Vatsaraj, and Nagbhat 2 and Nagbhat 2 were early great kings of the dynasty. Early great kings of the dynasty. For example, Nagbhat 1 successfully resisted Arab invasion. Successfully resisted Arab invasion. आप एक लाइन और ऐड कर लेना. Pratiharas fought many battles with Palas and Rashtrakutas. Pratiharas fought many battles with Palas and Rashtrakutas to control Kannauj. So all of these rulers fought with Palas or Rashtrakutas. Give the next heading, Mihir Bhoj. So Mihir Bhoj may have ruled from about 836 to 885 AD. Right down here. He is considered one of the greatest ruler of the dynasty. One of the greatest ruler of the dynasty. Despite an earlier defeat by Palas and Rashtrakutas, despite an earlier defeat by Palas and Rashtrakutas, he recovered his strength. He recovered his strength, defeated both the kingdoms, and set up his capital at Kannauj. Set up his capital at Kannauj. Kannauj. He was a great follower of Vaishnavism. He was a great follower of Vaishnavism. And adopted the title of Adi Varah. Adi Varah. Varaha is one of the avatars of Lord Vishnu, so hence Adi Varah. As per Arab travelers, he maintained a powerful cavalry. One of the Arab traveler, Al-Masudi, titled him King Bora. King Bora. This may have been just a corruption of Vara. So we do not know why he was called King Bora, but the best explanation is that this may have been the corruption of the original word Adivara. Write down next paragraph. His successor Mahendrapal further extended the empire, and at one point of time, Pratihara Empire was as large as Empire of Harshvardhan. Mahendrapal adopted the title of Maharaja Dhiraj of Aryavrat. Maharaja Dhiraj of Aryavrat. So the name Pal here should not confuse you. Mahendra Pal was a Pratihara ruler. By 10th century, the dynasty declined. The dynasty declined, and many feudatories who were under Pratiharas declared their independence. The dynasty came to an end because of invasion by Mahmud of Ghazni. Mahmud of Ghazni. Pratiharas were succeeded by powerful Rajput kingdoms such as Chauhans. They are also called Chahamanas. Parmars. Garhwals. Solankis, among others. This is where I will start medieval India from. तो ये जो प्रतिहारा period है, that is a transitional zone from ancient India. So by the way, I told you in the very first class that now historians have divided medieval India into further two parts, early medieval India and late medieval India. I asked this question that why this division is there, and I also told you that, by the way, initially this division was based on the religious affiliation of rulers, that Hindu period, Muslim period, and then British period. That is how British historians divided the period of Indian history. But it was rejected by many historians. First, that religious affiliation of ruler is not enough, because there is a significant chunk of population which basically follows other religion. And even if it is enough, then ancient period you have Buddhism, Jainism also. And even in medieval period, you have Delhi jo hai, the Delhi Sultanate hai, that is again, which the rulers are following Islam, but then there are many other kingdoms who are not following Islam. And of course, one more reason is that this type of religious division, that also comes with an agenda to further divide the society based on religion. So this was rejected. This division based on religious affiliation of ruler, that was rejected. Now we use many tools. जो ancient India, when we talk about ancient India, especially जो historical period है, we are mainly talking about cultural assimilation among many people, spread of Vedic ideas, but along with this spread, many new ideas also emerged that led to culture. We can call it a culture. जैसे एक UPSC ने क्वेश्चन पूछा था, हमने क्वेश्चन डिस्कस किया था क्या, that why Indian civilization has continued while others have not. ये क्वेश्चन हमने किया था. Write on this question. Many ancient civilizations such as Greek, Mesopotamia, Egypt, perished however there is a element of continuity in Indian civilization which is not in any other civilization. Discuss. I will give you a minute to think that how we can answer this question. Although I have paraphrased this question, the actual question I have now found. The ancient civilization in Indian subcontinent differed from those of Egypt, Mesopotamia and Greece in that its culture and traditions have been preserved without breakdown to the present day comment. So simple. Again, I have just paraphrased the question, but the question is same. तो कैसे हम करेंगे इसको, attempt कैसे करेंगे? I will give you a minute to think about it. Again, such type of question, इसका कोई आंसर, ये statement जो directly है, एक बहुत famous book है, एल बशाम की एक book है, the name of the book is The Wonder That Was India. It's, I do not prescribe that textbook again because it's a very thick textbook, written from art and culture perspective, not even from historical perspective, written from art and culture perspective, about 800 pages for 2-3 questions in prelims, 1 question in mains, does not make sense. But nonetheless, once you clear this examination, I definitely recommend that book. It's a wonderful book. So El Basham talks about, by the way, this book has another volume from medieval India, but the name of the book is simple, The Wonder That Was India. So this statement has directly been picked from that book. And in that book you will not find an answer. ऐसा नहीं कि statement pick करा है तो वहीं उसी पैराग्राफ में आंसर भी, ऐसा भी नहीं है. तो ऐसे जो क्वेश्चंस होते हैं इनका आंसर आपको लिखना पड़ता है. You have to write it by yourself. तो कैसे अटेम्प्ट करोगे इस क्वेश्चन को? आप अप्रोच पहले बताओ. Talk me that how you are going to approach this question. What will be the some important elements in your answer जो कि आप मिस नहीं कर सकते? Civilizations का, ठीक है. कंटिन्यूटी दिखाना पड़ेगा. ये दोनों इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है. ये हमेशा रियलाइज करना पड़ेगा कि इस क्वेश्चन के 2 पार्ट है, एक क्वेश्चन नहीं है. क्वेश्चन के 2 पार्ट है. दैट बाकी के सिविलाइजेशन में डिसकंटिन्यूटी है, इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन में कंटिन्यूटी है. तो आपको डिसकंटिन्यूटी बताना पड़ेगा ईदर विथ एग्जांपल्स और विथ रीजंस, एंड फिर इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन में आपको अगेन कंटिन्यूटी दिखाना पड़ेगा विथ एग्जांपल्स विथ रीजंस. तो ये आप कैसे करोगे आप? आई हैव टोल्ड यू द अप्रोच, हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू जस्टिफाई दिस. ओके, ठीक है. That's a very good worship, that very good point. जो phallus worship है, worship of लिंग. Even today that is also very popular. बिल्कुल हम बोल सकते हैं. What else? वर्शिप ऑफ नेचर इन जनरल. अगर हम रिलीजन की बात करें, एक एस्पेक्ट जो ये है, अच्छा पहले तो एक काम करते हैं, पहले हम इस क्वेश्चन को आंसर करने की कोशिश करते हैं. दैट डिसकंटिन्यूटी इन अदर सिविलाइजेशन, व्हाट कुड बी द पॉसिबल रीजंस? कोई भी सिविलाइजेशन क्यों पेरिश करेगा? थिंक ऑफ सम जनरल रीजन. सिविलाइजेशंस के पेरिश होने के बहुत सारे कारण हो सकते हैं. एक कारण तो इकोनॉमिक रीजन हमेशा एक होगा. इंटरनल रीजंस हो सकते हैं, दैट इकोनॉमी इज नॉट इनफ, surplus food is not there, right? Significant drought. So there can be internal reason which is because of, those reasons can be political, those reasons can be social, those reasons can be economic also. Political reasons will be when rulers are not competent enough, they are corrupt, they are not able to maintain hold of a large empire often will then disintegrate, civilization will perish. Economic reasons can be, again, it can be because of bad economic policies, kings are not investing enough into their taxation administration, or it can also be because of natural factors like significant drought or decline in trade for any reason. ये भी हो सकता है. Social factors can also be there. A significant chunk of population is not happy with the rule of elites and they rebel against it. So that can also be a reason. But there can be external reasons also. Invasions can be a very important reason. जैसे Greeks were replaced by Romans and Romans also were replaced by Ottomans later. First by Hunas, then by Ottomans. Right? ये एक हम बता सकते हैं. Egyptian civilization है, that also declined. Mesopotamian civilization also declined. We do not find जो Mesopotamia civilization का जो contemporary अभी इराक है, we do not find any element of Mesopotamian civilization in the society of Iraq today. We do not find Greek elements. Greek gods are not worshipped now in Europe. Even though they are very popular part of literature, Zeus and all of the gods, Apollo, all of them are mentioned, but they are not worshipped as such. Right? तो हम ये बोल सकते हैं. Mesopotamian, similarly, जो Egyptian civilization है, जो अभी Egyptian society, it has nothing to do with what Egypt was in ancient period. So now come to Indian civilization. What could be, first thing first, what could be the possible reasons that there is an element of continuity in Indian civilization? It's not just about resistance. एक जैसे बहुत बढ़िया एक लाइन लिख रखा है अभिषेक ने, that civilizations crumble because of their rigidity, while Indian civilization is an evolving civilization. Now, that's actually a very good point. That many people came here. Yes, battles definitely did happen, but they actually settled and they interacted with local people. We always have this element of tolerance in our society, that we have always been open to accepting more and more ideas. And because of this acceptance, because of this tolerance, many people from outside, they came and settled, and it led to emergence of a new type of culture. So this culture of tolerance may have played a very important role. However, another very important role is that first, it is always very difficult to invade India because of geography. Himalaya, Indian Ocean. Only place where you can invade is from northwest frontier, which has very difficult terrain. इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि invasions हुए नहीं हैं, हुए हैं, but few हुए हैं. We can count them on finger. We have like Persian invasion, Greek invasion, Hun invasion. We have Islamic invasion, so we can count them on fingers. But many such invasions, many such invaders, they settled into India and they actually adopted Indian culture, which led to emergence of a new type of culture. तो ये एक line हम बताएंगे, हम explain करेंगे, and then we will jump to the last part of the question, that what are the elements of continuity. यहाँ पे हमको examples देना पड़ेगा. जैसे you told about phallus worship. In general, religion में बहुत simple है, nature worship. Elements of nature, for example, worship of people, worship of, across India we find worship of rivers, right? तो ये हम nature worship जो है, that is that was during Indus civilization also, Vedic civilization also, Mauryan period, Gupta period, throughout that we find it. Buddhist ideas, Jain ideas, even today they are very popular. But apart from religion, what can be more points? Concept of? Sorry? अच्छा, कुआं. Well, it's a necessity. Water is a necessity. तो well जो है, can we really call it an element of continuity as such? Because well तो throughout आप किसी भी civilization में आपको मिल ही जाएगा. Underground water और हमारे पास तो था नहीं, pump का concept तो था नहीं. तो ये तो फिर भी I'm not very sure if we can use it. Perhaps आप justify करने आना चाहिए. If you can justify it properly. What else? अभी क्या क्या? Okay. So, by the way, the idea of tolerance in itself has continued. Now, that is also a very good point, a very good way of putting point. The idea of tolerance in itself has continued. Yes, of course, it has suffered challenges. It is still suffering from many challenges, but it has continued. And yes, that can also be a very good point. What else? Languages. Sanskrit as a language हम बात कर सकते हैं, और Tamil as a language हम बात कर सकते हैं. That how Sanskrit and language, जो ancient languages हैं, they still are. Sanskrit is not a popular spoken language, but Tamil definitely is. Many of these languages have ancient origin. Kannada, Telugu, all of these languages have ancient origin. Now that is also a very good point. हम बोल सकते हैं जैसे लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट का जो है वो इंडिया में हमको बहुत एग्जांपल्स मिलते हैं. ड्यूरिंग गुप्ता पीरियड, ड्यूरिंग मौर्य पीरियड, अभी हम इंपीरियल चोलास के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे. उनका वन ऑफ द मोस्ट वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन था, जो पंचायत से बहुत वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड पंचायत थे। तो ये भी एक बहुत बढ़िया पॉइंट हो सकता है। दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी गुड पॉइंट। सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, हाउ इट हैज कंटिन्यूड इवन टुडे, जो पूरा वर्ण और जाति सिस्टम है, दैट स्टिल इज प्रैक्टिस्ड इन द सोसाइटी, एन इविल प्रैक्टिस, बट नॉनदलेस देयर इज अ कंटिन्यूटी हियर आल्सो, राइट? सो वी कैन मेंशन दैट आल्सो। नहीं, जरूरी नहीं है हम, हाँ नहीं नहीं, तो क्वेश्चन जो है, जो ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन था आपका, ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन में एक लाइन था आपका, ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन में ब्रेक डाउन टू द प्रेजेंट डे, क्वेश्चन ऐसे था ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन, दैट इट्स कल्चर एंड ट्रेडिशंस हैव बीन प्रिजर्व्ड विदाउट ब्रेक डाउन टू द प्रेजेंट डे। तो क्वेश्चन में था, जो ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन था वहां पे प्रेजेंट डे वर्ड दे रखा था, ठीक है। लैक ऑफ स्ट्रॉन्ग लीडरशिप, दैट कैन नॉट बी अ पॉइंट। पोजिशन ऑफ वुमन, yes we can say that position of woman has seen many evolution, but yes we can say that, although patriarchy जो है वो एक टेम्पोरल स्पेशियल फिनोमेना है, ऐसा नहीं कि वो इंडिया स्पेसिफिक फिनोमेना है, कि जो पैट्रियार्की है वो टेम्पोरल फिनोमेना है, वो स्पेशियल फिनोमेना है। थ्रू आउट द टाइम, थ्रू आउट द स्पेस वी हैव फाउंड पैट्रियार्की, बट नॉनदलेस वी कैन टॉक अबाउट इट। In fact, anything we can perhaps say that respecting women, respecting elders, that has continued, right? अच्छा, सो मेनी स्कल्पचर ट्रेडिशन की हम बात कर रहे हैं, हम बोल सकते हैं, भी बोल सकते हैं। सो राइट डाउन एज मेनी एग्जांपल्स एज यू कैन। हमारा क्लोथिंग ट्रेडिशन, जैसे आई टोल्ड अबाउट कुशाना पीरियड, दैट जो लॉन्ग ओवरकोट है, शेरवानीज हम अभी भी हम यूज करते हैं। जो हमारा फूड ट्रेडिशन है, नॉन वेजिटेरियन फूड वाज पॉपुलर इन इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन आल्सो, ड्यूरिंग वैदिक पीरियड आल्सो, लेटर आल्सो। तो हम बहुत सारी चीजों के अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट्स के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं, दैट हाउ वी फाइंड एलिमेंट ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी। अ मेजर एस्पेक्ट हैज टू बी रिटन about religion, about society, about different aspects of culture, वो हमको लिखना पड़ेगा। तो ऐसे यूपीएससी के बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस होंगे where you have to think then and there and then you have to write answer. I will एक और क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करते हैं। Takshila University was one of the oldest universities of the world. Takshila Universities was one of the oldest universities of the world, with which were associated a number of renowned learned personalities, of different disciplines, Its strategic location caused its fame to flourish, but unlike Nalanda, it is not considered as a university in the modern sense, Discuss. I will give you a minute to पहले ये बता दो मुझे कि अप्रोच क्या होगा, मेन चीज किस पे हाईलाइट करना है। ऐसे जो लंबे क्वेश्चन होते हैं वहां पे कॉन्टेक्चुअल क्लैरिटी बहुत जरूरी है। कि पहले क्वेश्चन को पढ़ के ये देखो कि हम यूपीएससी पूछना क्या चाह रही है, व्हाट इज द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग यू हैव टू फोकस अपॉन. सो जस्ट टेल मी फर्स्ट how you are going to approach this question. तक्षशिला नहीं है तो देखो सिंपल सा, पहले तो ये जो शुरू का पूरा लाइन है, पूरा जो फर्स्ट लाइन है, वो मेन पार्ट ऑफ क्वेश्चन है ही नहीं. वो बस आपको फर्दर कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज करना है. जैसे जो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट है पूरा बड़ा सा, दैट स्टेटमेंट यू जस्ट हैव टू कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज इन द इंट्रोडक्शन. राइट मोर अबाउट तक्षशिला, इट्स लोकेशन, सम इंपॉर्टेंट पर्सनालिटीज. जैसे Panini, of course, is one of the greatest personality. There is a theory that Chanakya also may have studied at University of Takshila. So, एक दो important personality आप बताओगे, but that is not the important part of the question. The important part of the question is the last statement, that how Takshila is not considered a university in modern sense, but Nalanda is. So, this question will have two parts. The first part will have about 20-25% of the focus, that talk about Takshila, टॉक अबाउट इट्स लोकेशन, टॉक अबाउट सम इंपॉर्टेंट पर्सनालिटीज. जो भी चीजें स्टेटमेंट में दे रखी है उसको आप फर्दर कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज करो, मैप पे बना के दिखा दो कि तक्षशिला कहां पे. आप बता दो कि कैसे पर्शिया, चाइना, इंडिया सबका एक समझ लो एक कन्वर्जेंस जोन है, दैट यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ तक्षशिला. तो मैप पे दिखाओ आप इसको, थोड़े एग्जांपल्स बताओ. देन टॉक अबाउट नालंदा और ऑल्सो कि नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी क्या है, कब बनी थी, हु वर रिस्पॉन्सिबल, राइट. दिस विल बी अबाउट first 25-30% of the question. But the main part of the question that is the second question, that Nalanda is considered a modern university but Takshila is not. इसको आप कैसे करोगे? How you are going to handle this question? बहुत ही बढ़िया पॉइंट है. और क्या लिख सकते हैं? दैट्स अ वेरी गुड पॉइंट. that's a very good point. देखो ये क्वेश्चन है सिंपल सा, आपको इमेजिन करना पड़ेगा. दैट द वर्ड इज, जो की वर्ड है मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटी. मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटी के कुछ कुछ फीचर्स क्या होंगे? ऑफन टू गेट एडमिशन यू रिक्वायर सम सॉर्ट ऑफ मेरिट, perhaps entrance examination or good marks. तो मेरिट चाहिए. नालंदा एडमिशन was based on merit. नालंदा के बारे में बोलते हैं कि जो द्वारपाल थे वो स्कॉलर्स थे, वो आप आओ वहीं टेस्ट ले लेते थे. They used to ask some question, if you answer them you are admitted to the Nalanda. So entrance examination were taken by doorkeepers themselves. Again, how much that is true we do not know that, but that is a very famous story about Nalanda University. देन देयर वाज अ प्रॉपर, अभी मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटीज में क्या होगा, प्रॉपर करिकुलम बटा होगा, सेमेस्टर्स होंगे, एक ईयर 1 होगा, 2 होगा, 3 होगा. ऐसे ही नालंदा में था. देयर वाज अ प्रॉपर करिकुलम बेस्ड एजुकेशन. देयर आर मेनी सब्जेक्ट्स व्हिच वर टॉट, इंक्लूडिंग बुद्धिस्ट फिलोसफी वाज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट, बट देयर आर मेनी अदर थिंग्स, आयुर्वेदा, पॉलिटिकल साइंस, मेनी एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, इकोनॉमी और रिलीजन, दे वर टॉट एट नालंदा. प्रॉपर करिकुलम वाज डिजाइंड फॉर ईयर 1, ईयर 2, ईयर 3. जैसे अभी यूनिवर्सिटीज में, बहुत सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज में हॉस्टल होता है, प्रोफेसर्स के रहने की जगह होती है. नालंदा हैड ऑल ऑफ दोज फैसिलिटीज. स्टूडेंट्स फ्रॉम ऑल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड यूज्ड टू कम एंड स्टडी देयर. नालंदा में एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट सेटअप था, दैट फर्स्ट ईयर स्टूडेंट एंड सेकेंड ईयर स्टूडेंट्स, दे वेयर फॉर फ्यू मंथ्स दे वेर केप्ट इन टू वन रूम, सो दैट द सेकेंड ईयर स्टूडेंट can further teach, further help first year student in their curriculum, right? So many things which is used in modern universities, it was present in Nalanda University. Compared to that Takshila, that's a very good point. जो Takshila है, that was, जो system है वो Gurukul system was very popular. That we are not talking about one large giant infrastructure which was at Takshila. We are talking about many educational settlements with gurus, with shishya, with pupils, right? Compared to Nalanda, where there is a proper physical infra, library, hostel, state places for professors where they can come and stay, all of those things were there. So that is how you have to compare Nalanda and Takshila. तो जो सेंट्रलाइज सिस्टम ऑफ एक स्कूलिंग की हम बात करते हैं वो नालंदा में था, बट वो तक्षशिला में नहीं था. तो इस तरीके से प्रॉपर करिकुलम डिजाइन वी डू नॉट फाइंड एनी रेफरेंस वेयर देयर इज अ प्रॉपर करिकुलम based education in Takshila University. So all of those things you can mention if I have to compare this to great places of learning. So that is how you can answer such questions. Such questions जो है अगर मान लो UPSC पूछती है, these two are by the way two of my favorite questions UPSC has asked from ancient history or art and culture. But the good thing is that these questions do not require as such factual knowledge. These questions do not require some special preparation. It requires a basic level of awareness about a topic, and with that basic level of awareness also you can solve questions very easily, right? In next class we will start our discussion about two simultaneous things we are going to study. We will first talk about Cholas, imperial Cholas, and then we will talk about invasion by Mahmud of Ghazni, and then invasion by Muhammad Ghori. So that will be our topic of medieval India, but that we will start in the next class. If you have any question till now, you can ask from ancient India or whatever we have discussed regarding your preparation, you can ask questions. कॉमन सेंस का मतलब ये है कि कॉमन लेवल ऑफ अवेयरनेस होना चाहिए. हम ये नहीं बोल सकते कि कुछ भी अगर पता नहीं हो फिर भी आंसर कर सकते हैं. He is saying that how can it be solved with common sense? I am assuming that you have some basic level of awareness. You have basic level of awareness about Takshila, about Nalanda, overall, but the question, the main part of the question is that Nalanda is a university in modern sense, Takshila is not. That can be answered with common sense. That part. बट जो अवेयरनेस वाला पार्ट है उसके लिए ऑफकोर्स आपको नॉलेज चाहिए प्रॉपर एंशिएंट हिस्ट्री का, आर्ट एंड कल्चर का. उसके बिना आप इंट्रोड्यूस ही नहीं कर पाओगे आंसर को अपने, तो उसके लिए आपको जो है वो आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए. बिलीव मी, आप लिख के आ जाओ, लॉजिकल आंसर गलत नहीं होगा. मैं सिंपल सा एक पॉइंट बता रहा हूं कि यहाँ पे बहुत फैक्चुअल अगर आपको पता है अच्छी बात है, बट अगर नहीं भी पता है तो जस्ट अ सिंपल कंपैरिजन दैट व्हाट विल बी सम फीचर्स ऑफ मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटीज एंड जस्ट राइट इट डाउन कि वो नालंदा में था, दैट विल बी अ लॉजिकल आंसर एंड यू विल बी रिवॉर्डेड फॉर इट. सो बिलीव मी दैट इज नॉट गोइंग टू, वो आपका गलत नहीं होगा. ऐसे क्वेश्चन का कोई एक फिक्स्ड आंसर नहीं होता है दैट ये बिल्कुल फिक्स्ड आंसर है, यही पॉइंट्स आप लिखोगे तभी आपको मार्क्स मिलेंगे. इट इज अबाउट हाउ यू आर स्ट्रक्चरिंग योर पॉइंट्स. इफ यू कैन स्ट्रक्चर योर पॉइंट्स very well, you are going to get not normal but very good marks in such questions, right? And you will find many such questions like this in not just paper 1 but in different papers also. Any other question if you have? So next class we will talk about, we will start our medieval India classes. We will start with further discussion about first southern India, and then we will shift our focus to North India, especially northwest frontier where Turkish invasion to India started. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.